Occupy Ghana. Is that employment? Do you consider your time with Occupy Ghana as employment?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the heading is employment and experience. Under Occupy Ghana, there were some skills and competencies that I picked up, especially in terms of leadership and in terms of good governance. And that is why I consider that opportunity relevant, sir.
You have employment history, work experience. Were you earning salary? Did you receive an appointment letter with Occupy Ghana?
Occupy Ghana was a voluntary organization, Mr. Chairman.
So do you agree with us that that should belong to a different heading? Volunteer services?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be guided by your direction.
Do we have your permission and employment history? You have here member, 7th Parliament, Republic of Ghana for Ewutu Senya West. Do we have your permission to clean it up to meet our format? It could be member of the 7th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana representing the Ewutu Senya West constituency. Is that okay?
Mr. Chairman, like I said earlier, I'll be guided by your direction, sir.
Chairman has already noted the verbosity, so I would not bore you with that. But page 5, do we have your permission to correct? Second paragraph, you have Parliamentary Select Committee on Telecommunications. There is no such committee. Do you have your permission to correct to Select Committee on Communications? Is that okay?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
We will do same for the Ministry of Environment. We will do same. It should be Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. We will do that, if you don't mind. And we will also need some dates from you. Page 9, you indicate that you were at the Food Research Institute and Pepsi Cola. We don't have locations. Food Research Institute, can we know where? That's your national service. For this one, we have the dates, but we don't have the location.
Mr. Chairman, I'll provide the information that you're requesting.
Okay. And we would also need further particulars from you on page 12 of your CV, the project work and papers presented. Quite impressive, but we don't have the dates. Kindly provide the dates when you resubmit. Please do us that honor. Your last page under hobbies, you have interesting hobbies: training and breeding pedigree dogs. That's interesting. But you also have production of events. Curious, is this a hobby? Do you do it for free? Do you produce events for free?
Mr. Chairman, there are loads of occasions where I produce events for free. I enjoy production. I enjoy things that make people happy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
Very well. Chairman, let me...
You start with the main vetting.
Chairman, let me join you in congratulating our colleague George Anda. Marketing, high pedigree. To what extent would you use your marketing skills to resituate and assist your minister to redefine the mission of the Ghana Meteorological Service Agency to improve their service delivery, which is an agency of the ministry?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting hearing from a former Minister of Communication on the need for GMET to be rebranded. And indeed, we would, I think that the rebranding process, if indeed that is what the minister requires, would be looked at.
Chairman, the nominee is also going to assist the Honorable Minister Osla. One of the major outstanding issues fundamental to the delivery of Ghana's index is our transition from analog radio and television to digital. We are late since June 2016. I believe that the nominee have indicated that he's been part of discussions with the minister. You want to share with us how you intend to assist the minister so that Ghana can realize the goal?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As far as the DTT program is concerned, I think the previous administration has done some significantly good work. The DTT program is currently in place in the Greater Accra region, in Ashanti region, in the Volta region, and the 3 northern regions. The rest of the country needs to be covered by the deadline. There are a few issues that...
When will the rest of the countries be covered? Do you have consultation with your minister on that? When?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that when the Honourable Minister was being vetted, she gave a deadline September 2017, if my memory serves me right. And I believe that we would work towards that deadline by her direction.
I haven't worked for the most part of your life in the telecom sector. I was minded to learn from political opposition to government that you don't kill the hen that lays the golden egg. One of the problems with the telecoms was to use mobile telephony as a weapon to fight crime. That's why we brought in the SIM registration regime. Now it appears to be suffering, and now you can just be sitting here, get a text message which is a threat, get another message which is an insult. You cannot trace the source of it. Assure us that you work with your minister to ensure that every SIM in Ghana is in fact properly registered.
Mr. Chairman, you have my full assurance.
But say something about it.
Well, George, you've given the answer. If you want to say something about it.
Mr. Chairman, on a lighter note, I think I'm a fast learner. I was queried for having a heavy CV. I was queried for talking too much. And now I'm learning going forward. So I'll be giving very short answers going forward.
Mr. Chairman, one of the instruments we introduced last 4 or 5 years was mobile number portability to improve the quality of service and to deepen competition. Where Ghana now is lagging behind has to do with seamless connectivity. That, for instance, if you were in this building or at the airport, you should be able to have a signal between X operator, YZ operator, and the signal will change on the basis of the strength of the operator. You are very familiar with the telecom regime. Can Ghana dream to get there so that if I were traveling to Bekwai to Chairman's constituency and I get to Suhum and my, maybe I should just use a name to advertise it, my Tigo can work, I can rely on MTN, or my MTN can work, I can rely on Vodafone. If Vodafone cannot work, I can't rely on it. Can Ghana get there if you are able to support your minister in that enterprise?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as far as technology is concerned, it is possible. It's actually called the local roaming service. So you realize that if you travel international, you have that experience that you've just described. If you happen to travel local, you don't have it. It's because we don't have local roaming in place. There are certain countries that have that. So if that's the policy of government, if that's the policy of the ministry, then of course the regulator would have a discussion with the operators to implement it. So yes, it is possible.
Hey, only Chairman's zone is working.
Mr. Chairman, maybe they want you to stop asking questions.
Oh yeah, I'm about stopping though. Chairman, still relative to the quality of service, National Communications Authority, call drop I recall a few years ago, then as CEO, we queried you on many of it. You are on the phone still saying hello, hello, particularly when the spouses are engaged in conversation and the line cut. You know it can create social tensions arising out of it, and you can be a victim. Assure us that you and your minister will work to improve quality of service, probably taking advantage, Minister, of what used to be a consumer forum, where annually there was public forum where the stakeholders came to discuss the way forward for the future of the industry. Do you share that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think in this particular regime, if I'm approved by this panel, we're going to have a situation where the minister has a rich telco experience and where one of the deputies also has a rich telco experience. I believe that we do understand the pain points of the consumer, and we do understand the areas where the mobile operators can up their game. I think with experience that we have with the new NCA Acting Director General, indeed customer service and quality of service are going to top on the agenda to make sure that the consumers are satisfied going forward.
Chairman, since you have put my mic off to say that I'm done, the last is Ghana Post. I mean, take the US Post, take the DHL of Germany. They are sitting on one of the best assets and looking for partnership to support its development. Will you support your minister to reform the Ghana Post? And Chairman, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I believe that you recall that in the minister's vetting, one of the issues that she had flagged as being priority for the Communications Ministry was national ID and addressing system. Mr. Chairman, I believe that once we have a solid national ID and addressing system, it creates the right platform for Ghana Post to take off. And so, yes, the minister would have all my support to make sure that we take Ghana Post to the level that it belongs to. Thank you.
All right.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations once again, Honorable George. And the first question I have for you has to do with what continues to plague a lot of customers of the telcos: SIM-box fraud. You receive a call from a relative outside, and it comes through as a local number. And we are told that we are losing millions and millions of revenue. You are an industry person. The previous government tried, there were task forces. There was even somebody who was jailed, a big fish, last year, who was president of Grader. But it continues, what do you propose should be the new approach in fighting SIM-box fraud? What should be the new strategy? How will you advise your minister to address this challenge?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the issue of SIM-boxing is quite an interesting area. There are two quite strong views about why SIM-boxing happens in certain countries. I am of the view, and I believe that that would be informed, that SIM-boxing is a direct result of pricing arbitrage. So if you have a situation where you're creating an opportunity for individuals to land traffic in your market, and then they can still land it through the grey route, then SIM-boxing would continue. However, you need to balance that with the amount of money that the government is making from the 19 cents issue. So it's a policy decision that has to be taken. However, I don't share the view that chasing SIM boxes around is a solution, because right now the people can even be in Togo, and they can have the SIM boxes in a vehicle driving around, so you will not necessarily be able to locate the particular cell site where the SIM boxing activity is taking place. So the minister has had a fantastic way of addressing issues so far. We need to have like a stakeholder dialogue that she's had with the NCA, for all stakeholders to sit down and really understand the issues. There are certain countries like Nigeria where there's no pricing arbitrage and there's very little SIM boxing that takes place. And so I believe that we'd have to have that kind of stakeholder discussion and then come to an informed position to inform the policy going forward, Mr. Chairman.
My final question, Mr. Chairman. On the 4th of November 2016, whilst campaigning to become Member of Parliament, and I must raise this question because you are going to work with a lady as your minister. You have just indicated a while ago how blessed you feel. But it doesn't appear that you felt blessed campaigning against another woman, the Honorable Hannah Tete. You appeared sexist, misogynistic, and what have you, when you descended heavily on her during your campaign, saying, I came here with my wife and children. Tell Hannah Tete to also show us her husband. And we heard you subsequently defending this statement. Since November, you've had time to reflect. You have certainly taken the seat from her. Do you have any regrets now that, as fate will have it, you are going to work with another woman? Is that the George Under you want Ghanaians to know you to be somebody who does this to women? And what do you have to say about this whole episode?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the question. I think you've totally misunderstood what the issue was. I never said anything against women. I don't think that there's anything wrong with asking a colleague to show a husband on a campaign, especially when the electorate are asking for full support. Given the heat of the campaign, there are excesses sometimes. With the benefit of hindsight, I probably wouldn't have reacted the same way. And I'm sure that my honorable minister, if I'm appointed or if I'm passed by this committee, will take me through the Kofi Annan Institute for me to learn the rudiments of managing things the right way. Thank you very much. But let me add that since the election, I waited a couple of days and I didn't receive any call from Hannah Tete. I called Hannah Tete 3 days after the election, and we had a very good conversation. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that there's any bad blood between Honorable Hannah Tete and myself. Thank you.
Chairman, he said he doesn't see anything wrong with what he said. Do you want that to go on the record, that you don't see anything wrong with what you said?
Honorable Okujeto, we had his answer. That's
so he doesn't mind.
He clarified it subsequently, that in the heat of election, you can get excesses and he wouldn't want. On the benefit of a hindsight,
so he shouldn't say he doesn't see anything wrong with it.
At the time you're saying that in the election, please let's not get into argument over this. Honorable Amakuhine.
Chairman, I'm sure your wife will not be impressed with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Deputy Minister nominee, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I have a small friendly question for you, not on the other side, but at the good side today. According to your CV, you are a biochemist, a marketer who has migrated to be a politician. Why the crisscrossing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I chose a career path that will fast-track my personal development. I did my first degree in marketing. I did my MBA I did my first degree in biochemistry. I learned the rudiments, and I think that enables me to think in a very logical process as a scientist. I then did my master's degree in marketing, where my focus was on driving consumer demand. At this moment, I have been blessed with an opportunity to serve God, to serve country through politics, and I see that as a vocation, and that's exactly what I'm doing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable, you have been a good marketee. What do you... Marketee. E-E-R. King George. Okay, thank you very much for the correction. But he understands that too. What do you bring on board to the Ministries of Communication in support of your abled minister?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think the ecosystem that we try, or that is created in the Communications Ministry, looks at a number of stakeholders. These stakeholders are the partners, the consumer, or the public, or the citizenry, and of course, you do have the government side. And it's important that all stakeholders are seen as customers. So one thing that I bring to the table is my insight into customer understanding. I also bring the insights from the business point of view, where everything is results driven. And it's about performance, it's about results, it's about planning properly, it's about proper executions, it's about controls, it's about managing the spend and making sure that you drive the bottom line. And I believe that that mindset and that thinking applied to the way that government business is run is going to be a great asset and will complement the strengths of the Minister of Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The last one. Two.
The last one, Chairman.
Two. Only two. Nilante.
Dejan Chikela, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, George.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Let me first take you to our field. When a product faces a problem in the market, what are the two most important things you want to do in order to reintroduce the product, and why?
Well, you need to understand why the product is facing a failure in the market. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, you need to understand why the product is failing in the market. There are a number of reasons that a product could fail. It could be like the support that the product is being given is not sufficient. It could also be that the product itself does not match the expectations of the target. So you first need to understand what is it that the customer wants. And you need to find out whether your product is addressing those needs and wants of the customer. And indeed, if you want the product to be successful, you need to make sure that you over-deliver on the customer's expectations. Depending on what it is, if it's a voluntary thing or it's an NGO, you may not be doing it for profit. But normally, there should be some value that this product is adding to the business, and most of the time it's translated into profits.
Mr. Chairman, what is the current situation of NITA, and what do you think is needed to be done in order to make it much more meaningful as a strategic institution?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think NITA is one of the areas where we would have to commend the previous administration for putting in significant effort to create that asset. The current challenges of NITA, you can say that we need to fully commercialize NITA so that NITA can actually deliver the right kind of service to the customers. A lot of the customers are complaining that the service quality of NITA is not up to their expectations, but it's about a chicken and the egg situation. If NITA is not being paid by the ministries, departments, and agencies, then NITA will not be able to perform. And I believe that the previous administration initiated a process to fully commercialize, or to commercialize NITA. And I'm certain from the briefing that I've received from the Honorable Minister that that route is going to be pursued. Thank you very much.
Jato.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
The masts, we are told the radiation actually has some effect on the human being. We are told. And so when you go to our villages or our communities, people are prepared to accept the mast because of the monetary gain from the telecom industry. What would be your advice to...
Please clarify. People are prepared to accept the mast. Why?
The moment the telecommunication industry gets to the place.
I want to understand when you say people are prepared to accept. Where?
You know, when the
in their houses.
When the telecommunication industries get to the communities, people are prepared to rent their space, the space in front of their houses, for the telecom industries to use at a fee. So what I'm asking is that, since we are told that the radiation has effects, what advice will you give to the community?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I haven't cited any research report, and I haven't been shown any evidence that shows that there's any iota of truth that telephone cell sites radiate and can be carcinogenic. However, there are strict guidelines that the Environmental Protection Agency gives to telcos before they set up the masts, and there's a lot of things that happen even in terms of community engagement. So I believe that once the guidelines are followed, there shouldn't be any problem until there's new information that suggests otherwise. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
My second question has to do with the telecommunication companies. They see some of the communities to be commercially not viable, and they don't actually erect their masts there. Meanwhile, everybody is supposed to enjoy from the network facility. So what will you do to make sure that communities that are not viable in terms of the commercial benefits will also get connected?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I believe that all the telcos want to retain a proper investment on their, we don't want to retain a proper investment. The perception that certain communities are not viable may exist. However, there's also the provision that GIFEC has to be providing telephone coverage for areas where there are gaps as far as telecom coverage is concerned. And once GIFEC provides the infrastructure, the telcos then latch onto that infrastructure. I believe that the issue going forward with the direction of the minister will be to aggressively pursue closing these gaps that do exist. But that said, it's interesting to know that there's a significant investment that the previous administration or previous administrations have put in terms of data capacity. And going forward, the direction or the way of doing business for telcos is going to change from voice into data. And so that significant infrastructure that has been laid on ground is going to be a great asset for telcos to latch on going forward. Thank you, sir.
Let me do a flap myself. You're suggesting that the infrastructure on the ground, if built upon, should cover all communities. Do I understand you to be saying that?
Well, the fiber infrastructure, we have the Eastern Corridor, there's the Western Corridor, there's several rings that are being put in place. And so there's significant fiber infrastructure that will provide proper data coverage. However, you need to make sure that you do the last mile, and sometimes you need to do the radio waves, the radio links. So what I'm saying is that going to the communities, a lot of the legwork has been done. It's not going to be that difficult going forward to be able to offer telco services going forward. But of course, you still have to do the last mile, and you still have to provide the radio links going forward.
And you worked for Airtel, and in that, did you come across communities like in the municipality, Dotom, Subreso, Kokotro, in those areas? Yes, you have to climb a tree to be able to make a call.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be the last person to say that mobile telephony coverage is +1 in Ghana. There are certain areas where there are black holes or there are dark spots, and so there's work that needs to be done. I believe that some individuals keep on writing applications to GIFEC to consider providing coverage in their areas, and going forward, I believe that we'll be able to address these issues. The regulator also has strict KPIs for the telcos in terms of expansion. Once certain communities are of a certain population, there's a need for them to be considered for telephone coverage, Mr. Chairman. But, Mr. Chairman, a point of correction, I work for Airtel in Nigeria, not in Ghana.
Very well. Okay, so otherwise I'm going to hold you to the further communities. No, I think we are done for the day. Leadership now. Oh, he has had every candidate he has approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me start by congratulating our colleague for the opportunity. On your CV, you stated that you were a co-founder of Occupy Ghana. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed yesterday, I was a co-founder of Occupy Ghana, and I resigned my position in Occupy Ghana a couple of weeks ago.
You said, as discussed yesterday. With who? Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to know, what was the core objective for the setting up of Occupy Ghana?
Mr. Chairman, the core objective of setting up Occupy Ghana was to get proper economic management, was to get things being done the right way, was to get the rule of law to work, was to get systems running. And indeed, Occupy Ghana is not about agitation. You probably are confusing Occupy Ghana with Citizens Ghana. Occupy Ghana are not really about agitation. We do more of dialogue, we do more of engagement, and I think one of the big things that we have done, that Occupy Ghana did, was to get the law on surcharging and disallowance being passed by the House, and so that is the direction that Occupy Ghana goes. It's more of dialogue. It's not really about fighting and stuff like that.
No, but in your answer, you said that it was not also about agitation.
It's not only about. The first line of action is about engagement and dialogue for Occupy Ghana. That is the way Occupy Ghana works.
How many of your members are in the House today? Have won election in Parliament today? Those that you know.
Well, I know of just me.
Are you sure you are the only member of Occupy Ghana in the House today?
Mr. Chairman, I was a former member of Occupy Ghana. I don't know anybody else in the House who is an executive active member of Occupy Ghana. You don't have to be. In reality, in Occupy Ghana, it's really about your mindset. So you don't necessarily have to be a registered member of Occupy Ghana to believe in what Occupy Ghana stands for. But as far as the registered members of Occupy Ghana are concerned, I don't know of anyone else in the House, sir.
I just wanted to know two things that he thought was very strongly part of the reason why they formed the Occupy Ghana. Just two things that he thought was like, look, we can't sit anymore, so let's form Occupy Ghana. Two things that pushed them to form Occupy Ghana.
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things was that we believe that the systems weren't working. We believe that there were processes in place that certain individuals were not really using those processes to make the system work. And we had to start engaging with people to make the system work. The other thing too was that there was a belief that certain decisions that were being taken were not in the best interest of the country. and we wanted an opportunity to make our voices heard. And indeed, one of the things that Occupy Ghana is probably very proud of is the work that they did with the Auditor General on this allowance and surcharges. And this is something that it's good for Ghana. The ultimate beneficiary was Ghana and the citizens of Ghana.
So, Dami, you've just given me one, but I was looking for two. You were talking about the... I said two.
The chairman, I gave two, sir.
No, the system is general. I just wanted two specific things.
The chairman, I talked about the systems and I talked about certain decisions that were being taken that we believe were not in the best interest at that time.
I thought these were too general. Well, if you say the system is so broad, is it the system of electing members of parliament? Is it the system of...
Mr. Chairman, I would leave it as is.
Let's just make progress. Mr. Chairman, in an answer to an earlier question about the SIM box fraud, he was also asked about registration of SIM. I just wanted to find out what his experience from the industry. If every SIM in Ghana is registered properly, will it not virtually eliminate SIM board fraud?
Well, Mr. Chairman, not necessarily. I mean, you'll be able to go after the SIM that is involved in the fraud, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that SIM will not be involved in fraud before you identify what SIM is involved in the fraud.
Mr. Chairman, let me just ask, because of its experience from the industry, those who cause this crime will usually have 500,000 of SIMs that they use. If it is registered in, say, Honorable Under, and he's registering 20, it will raise an eyebrow. If it's registered in Honorable Montake's name, 200 of them, it will register some eyebrow to help the telecos know this person registering 500 SIMs may be up to something, and therefore pay attention to tracking. And much the same way, if a particular number is used again, and the number is used, we can track it and say that, oh, it is coming from Honorable Kujo. Don't you think that in actual sense, if we get SIMs properly registered, it could lead a way to drastically reduce SIM box fraud?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I mean, if the discussion is about reducing the likelihood of people participating in SIM boxing through proper SIM registration, yes. If it's about eliminating SIM boxing, then I do not think that that is the ultimate solution. But yes, we need to provide proper registration of SIMs. What will happen is that if your SIM is registered properly and your SIM is involved in any fraudulent activity, then the regulator or the telco can go after you.
What about the ICH? If very effectively used, can't it also be a very useful tool to minimizing drastically the SIM box fraud?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, which aspect of the ICH?
You know, because people, I mean, what do you call it? People have to route their calls, especially foreign calls, through the clearinghouse. It may be easier to track who are using numbers that are not properly registered for international calls. Is it not possible?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a bit confused as to the direction that you're heading. Talking about tracking, yes. But talking about arresting or stopping or eliminating SIM boxing, I personally am not of the view that that provides the ultimate solution. I think that the issue of SIM boxing is about price and arbitrage. And like I said earlier on, we need to strike the balance between taking a decision on pricing arbitrage, addressing pricing arbitrage, and the loss of revenue from the 19 cents area. And like I said earlier on, this is a discussion that would definitely go beyond Deputy Minister. There are a lot of stakeholders that need to be involved in the discussion. It's a policy that needs to be taken.
Mr. Chairman, in an answer to an earlier question, he talks about NITA being fully commercial this is the hope that it should go commercial, fully commercial. Did I hear that?
Well, not fully commercial, but certain aspects of NITA's resources or NITA's infrastructure certainly must be commercialized.
Okay, because if you say not fully, then that takes away the issue of funding rural internet penetration and what have you. Then those ones, as you head towards the ministry, you continue to advise the minister to make a window of opportunity for our disadvantaged communities to continue to access internet without necessarily having to pay the full charge of it, right?
Mr. Chairman, if that's the policy of the ministry, then certainly we'll be going along that direction.
No, you currently have this, what you call enhanced ICT centers, where you provide them with internet connectivity virtually free, and it's used in communities.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of national development, communication or telecommunication plays a key role. Maybe not all the programs can be justified to be revenue neutral, but the social benefits of some of these programs cannot be denied. So yes, wherever there's an opportunity for a clear social benefit or for a clear social issue to be addressed through such programs, I believe that the Honourable Minister would consider it.
Mr. Chairman, in an earlier answer about the local roaming, where regardless of which network you are, once there's network, you may be able to use. What do you really think it may take us to be able to get there? Because you said that when you get to the ministry, you will be assisting your minister, if that's the policy, to get it implemented. Having been in the industry, what do you think it may take to really get this thing done if we want to do it?
Mr. Chairman, I think the first thing is to decide whether we want to do it or not. Once there's a decision that is taken to pursue that direction, the implementation is something that will be rolled out. But the most important thing is for government to decide whether local roaming is a feature that we want to implement in this country. There are pros and cons of local roaming, so it's not like an ultimate solution to every problem that there is in customer service delivery. I mean, if you recall, before mobile number portability was actually launched, everybody was saying that once mobile number portability was launched, then once you have a poor experience, you can move to another network. But it hasn't been that much of a great success. I mean, so there are pros and cons. But like I said, the most important thing is to decide whether there's the direction that we want to go as a country. Once that decision is taken, the implementation will be looked at, sir.
I'll be happy to know one of the pros and one of the cons.
Well, one of the pros is that you can move from one network to another. You have a seamless experience. However, if mobile operator A charges 2 for 1 minute of traffic to terminate, and mobile operator charges 10. The fact that you have a network doesn't mean that for you the cost is not a consideration. Also, there are issues about the customer service delivery and the other products that a particular operator will be offering at any point in time. And so it's a broader discussion than just an across-the-table discussion that can be had, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my last question. Ghana Post. This question was asked of you earlier. How widely they operate, yet they seem to be in a complete distress. As you head towards the ministry, assisting your minister, what 2 things do you think we'll have to do to be able to get Ghana Post turned around?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If I have given the opportunity by this panel and confirmed as a deputy minister, I'll work closely with the minister to fix Ghana Post. The briefing that I received from the minister clearly shows 2 things. the issue of the national addressing system has to be in place. Once you have the national addressing system that is in place, you provide the right platform for Ghana Post to work effectively. The second thing is about resources and capability. If you properly resource Ghana Post in terms of the right technology, the right systems, the right people, and of course the right financial support, I believe that Ghana Post will be in good stead for competition. Sometimes, if you look at how private courier services are making money, and you look at the resources that Ghana Post has, and Ghana Post seems to be in distress, then is a wake-up call for us to turn things around with Ghana Post. There is significant opportunity, there is significant potential, and I believe that with the direction and the vision of the Honorable Minister, Ghana Post can be turned around.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman. So, will you support a privatization of it, or a PPP partnership with Ghana Post to get it move up to get the necessary financial muscles to be able to operate?
Mr. Chairman, I think that would ultimately be the decision of the minister.
But I just wanted to have your take. Which one do you think, sitting here, if your minister asks for your advice, which of the two will you propose?
Mr. Chairman, the briefing I've received so far doesn't put me in good stead to address this question.
Thank you very much. We will acknowledge the dignitaries who accompanied the nominee, and then we will discharge him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. On behalf of leadership, I wish to acknowledge the presence of all those who came to support the nominee. Mrs. Yasantua Anda, the wife of the nominee. Yes.
Honorable Kujata Broker, I've showed my wife, sir.
Dr. Emmanuel Kweku Anda, at Champagne Hine Senior, that's the father. Honorable Yao Osafmaf, I haven't seen. Is he here? No. Kobe Anda and Katie Anda, brother and sister. Professor George Payne-Hagan and David Anda, uncles. Kobina Anda, Kobe Addison, Ajoba Chiama, cousins. Justice Tete, Kofori reps from Ewutu Senior West Assembly. Burma Kwekujua William Hesse, Akwesima for friends. Kwesi Bainin, father-in-law. Dr. Joseph Esibu, cousin, and then a founder of Ideal College. Frank Hatchpool, Ogwa Okoto, NPP Central Regional Finance Committee member. Emmanuel Otu, NPP Council of Patrons, Ewutu Senior West. NPP Central Regional Executives. Stephen Quay, Ewutu Senior West Constituency Chair and Executives. Neyi Kwabna Nkwanta II, Acting President Senior Traditional Council. Nachi Akabi, Queen Mother Ewutu Traditional Council. Neyi Kojo Amanu II. Amano II. Odikro of Akwasa. Nei Kwashi Abe I. Ewutu Dabri Henning. Nei Kwame Banafo I. Ewutu Nkabom Hene. and Nay Kojo Benafo the second, Ewutu Akwamu Hene, Alhaji Muhammad Muniu, Zongo Chief, Seriki Zongo Chief, Nei Akondo Nkwanta the second, Senyabriku, last but not least, Nei Opate Oman Ewutu Sana Hene. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Yes, we have the Honorable Minister Transport. Yes, and then the son of the nominee is also here, and then our own father, Mr. Kwamina Battels. Good to see you. Honorable members from the Central Region, you are all acknowledged, duly acknowledged.
Hello, it's okay. Thank you very much. The Joanochi, the Executive Secretary of NCA, you're also here. Thank you very much. No, he's known. He stood up. George, you're discharged. You will hear from us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm most grateful for the opportunity.